Welcome back to Guess What Day It Is. Today, it's Atari Day. Let's hammer. It's phone day. Can't get my punch out. Turntable day. Did I not say nerd alert? So, what we have on the bench today is an Atari VCS, or better known as a 2600. This particular model is a 6-switcher. It's called 6-switcher because it's got 6 switches on it. So, this is a project that we have. We're going to do some upgrades, and we're going to do some refurbishing as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace some of the electrolytic capacitors and some other components like the voltage regulator on the inside. We're also going to do an upgrade with a new item that I found from the UK. It is a piggyback module that we actually solder to the backside of one of the IC chips in the unit, and then we solder some RCA out jacks or S-video, depending on which you choose, directly out of the unit. It's a mod that doesn't require removing any other components on the inside, so it's something that I prefer. I haven't modded any of these 2600s in the past because it does require some changes that, in my opinion, kind of takes away some of the charm. This mod looks like something that we can install, and if we so choose, we can easily remove it, and then it will be back to its normal functionality. So this one is functional. We have tested it. It does have some ghosting and some horizontal lines that indicate we may have some filter capacitors that may be worn out. It's been my experience. I've had a few of the different versions of the Atari. The 6 switchers, whether it's the difference in components or just the additional age versus the 4 switcher, which we'll talk about in a moment. I tend to have more issues with these than I do the newer 4 switch models. So I don't think I've ever really needed to do anything to the 4 switchers. That just may be my luck or what have you. I haven't done a ton, so my sample size is quite small. But yeah, so we're going to dig into this one. If we have time, depending on how this rolls out, I'm going to do some soldering tutorials. I'm not a professional, but I've been soldering for a very long time, and just kind of show you how I do it, some of the tools that I use, the type of solder, and so on and so forth. So we'll remove one or several components, and then we'll resolder, and I'll take you through that process as well. So let's take a break and kind of talk about the different generations of these wonderful machines. So we have 2 6 switchers here. These are basically the 2nd generation of the commercially available Ataris. The first version would be called a heavy 6er. The heavy 6er has some different RF shielding on the inside, which adds some weight to it, and the base is significantly denser and just a thicker plastic. So a quick and easy way to differentiate between a light 6er and like these two and a heavy 6er is to look at this seam right here. So you can see, let's see what kind of a measurement we have there. I think it looks like about 1/8 of an inch. Let's pull out the old tape measure and see what we can find there. Getting crooked, sorry. Trying to do stuff in one hand. Looks like we're about 1/8 of an inch wide there. I would say the heavy 6er would be probably a 1/4 inch thick. So visually, it's easy. It's quite easy to tell just by looking at that section right there. So the Heavy Sixer debuted in 1977 and was produced up until 1978 when the Light Sixer came out. One of the things that differentiates the Light Sixer from the Heavy Sixer is country of origin. The Heavy Sixer, for the most part, was made in California, here in the United States. They then shifted production to Taiwan. There are some Heavy Sixers, from what I understand, that were made in Taiwan. And what I would assume is they had extra inventory of parts, and they just shipped them out to there. So what's the difference between these two? So these are both basically identical, internally and externally. One is a Telelgames. This was a design that was specific to Sears. A couple different items. One, the faceplate is a little bit different, kind of a different font. Just says Video Arcade on the front. This was available in a Heavy and a Light Sixer, as well as a four switch version of that. And then if you compare that to the Atari branded version, there's a difference in wood grain as well. I think the Sears one was supposed to be a little bit more upscale, maybe with a more trendy looking wood grain pattern to it. So, but these are the model that was sold up until 1982, and I will show you what that version looks like. So here we have our 6 switcher next to our 4 switcher. So obviously 4 switches, 6 switches, pretty easy, right? So there are significant differences internally, which once we have this guy torn down, we're going to compare the board setup in this one versus what the board setup would be in a 4 switcher. So it's not just as simple as taking 2 of the switches and moving them to the back. There's a pretty significant difference. This one actually has 2 different boards, where this one has one integrated board for everything. This one has a much different RF shield than this one. There's some debate whether or not the shielding in this one makes a difference as far as video quality versus this one. To be frank, they're all pretty terrible. But my experience is the 4 switcher actually, at least the ones that I've owned, have had a much clearer picture even after refurbishing on one of these guys. So I know that's going to stir up some comments, so I'm not trying to offend. If I do offend you, tough. I don't know what to tell you. So come on, we're all getting along here. Anyway, so just take a look at the back side of it. That is probably another area of pretty big difference. So the way the board is set up, we'll make all this clear once we take them apart, but the difficulty switches are moved up here. Something else with the 6 switchers, I believe most of them did not have a channel 2 or channel 3 selector. So that posed a problem in other countries where a lot of times channel 3 may have had some kind of broadcast network channel. So it did make it kind of difficult. So one of the things that was added was the ability to check or to select channel 2 or channel 3 for the incoming RF signal. So that's one difference. The next generation after this would be what is called the Vader version. So the Vader version, basically to cut costs, did not have the wood grain. It didn't have the orange around the outside. The controllers did not have the orange surround on the joysticks, the little dots that would circle the basically the accordion section of the joystick, and they didn't have paddles. So I believe most of the this generation came with paddles, where the Vader version did not. So starting in '82, basically internally identical. So no real difference. And I do have a nerd alert, so stand by. Did I not say nerd alert? This is a Vader in the original box. I'm not going to take it out because it took me forever to get the machine back in there. So we're just going to leave it nice and tucked away. But the picture is pretty illustrative. Notice it is called out on the front, Atari 2600. Basically, I'm not sure if, I think the four switcher previous didn't call out 2600 on it, where this one does. So most of the earlier versions were either Telelgames for Sears or VCS, or basically video computer systems. So that is one difference. You can see the controllers are all black. There's no orange piping around the switches, and then there is no wood grain. So it's pretty slick. This particular one is the one that I bought, or that I used as a kid. Found this and the original box in two different spots. It's in pretty excellent condition. We did use this daily. So I do have some pictures of it. I'll put it up on some B-roll there so you can see it as well. But the pretty cool thing is it was bought at Target for the whopping price of $87.99. The cool thing is there are two serial numbers on the boxes. There's one on the outer box that you see there. There's one on the box that the game itself fits into. And of course, there's one on the actual game, and all three match. So the box is in fabulous shape there. So I do have this one up for sale. Depending on when you see this video, it may already be sold. So it's too nice of a unit to keep. Actually, the one we're working on today is going to be the one that we use here at the house. So let's tear into it and see what we find. Okay, let's see what we have here. So we've got a refresh kit from a company called Console 5. They had these nice little kits put together for you. They include the capacitors you need, a new voltage regulator, new power adapter, and some thermal paste that you use with the new voltage regulator. So it's a great kit. So a couple of schools of thought. I think if you haven't seen our video on the Pioneer SX727 that we did, a couple thoughts on this. A lot of times you can find very nice rebuild or recap kits for many different things, whether it's Ataris, other classic video games, including Nintendos and NES or Super Nintendos, all that kind of stuff, or vintage stereo equipment, all that kind of stuff as well. This was $11 roughly, if I'm not mistaken. If bought correctly, you can buy a lot of these components for much, much cheaper on your own. Now, you will probably have to buy in quantities, most likely quantity of 10. DigiKey is a company I use. They do a great job. Pretty intuitive. One of the things that you have to do is to go through and pick all of your capacitors or components, and you have to cross-reference, make sure that you get the right stuff. The good thing about this, it's all ready to go for you. You've got all the components that you need, and there's no guesswork. There are a couple videos on YouTube to help you install that. So, and the people that put this together have to make money too. So They are providing a service. In my opinion, the service is to make it as easy as possible for you. If this is something you're going to do on a regular basis, I would recommend buying them in a 10-pack, or at least a quantity of 10, so you can probably cut the price down to, per unit, probably closer to $2 or $3 once you get to that point. So just food for thought. But once again, this is a great, easy way to just get everything you need and slap it together. So this is really what's going to be cool. So comes from the UK, like we talked about. Really kind of came across this through just doing some research on wanting to upgrade so I don't have to use a VCR. Basically, the way I have Atari set up is the RF cable goes out, and there's an adapter that is used to connect this to the back of the VCR using a coaxial adapter. So this just plugs in the back side. This screws on to the coaxial input of the VCR. It then gives you component out via RCA, depending what kind of VCR you have, if it's stereo or not. You can have a right and left channel and a video out that you can then run into a lot of newer TVs, or we have a HDMI converter. So we have the component video going into HDMI, that goes into the TV. The good thing about that is it actually resizes it, kind of stretches it a bit, but I think it's a better overall experience. So basically what this is going to do, it's going to bypass all the RF equipment that's in the unit, and it's going to piggyback on the straight from the chip and send that out. And this actually does the video processing. So it's pretty neat. Let's do a little, never done an unboxing before. This will be kind of fun. Pull out the Leatherman Arc. It's a fantastic tool. So, what a pleasant surprise. Comes with the cables we need. That is absolutely fantastic. So, Retro 6 is the company. They have a lot of other different items, different retrofit types of kits for even some newer things than the Atari. So this is a nice little cable set that I thought was extra. I found it odd that I couldn't find it on there, but wires are all tinned, ready to go. Tinning means that there's a slight bit of solder that's on each of these ends that's stripped. And yeah, that's pretty cool. So we've got S-video out, and then we have our three lines of component video, or video and then audio as well. I do believe there's a way that you can actually have this connected and have stereo output, which really nothing is really created for the Atari that would benefit from stereo. So we're probably not going to do that. So this little thank you. I'll put some information in the description of the video as well. So this is really what we have come here for. It's this little guy. So pretty cool little setup. So we have this row of pins that have an outline around each that need to be soldered to the back side underneath. So we're going to solder this to the pin side of the board, not the component side of the board. And with the series of electronics on here, this does the processing for the video and audio straight from the chip. So once again, the great part about this is we installed this and leave everything in there. And if we want to do, to bring it back to its original form, we can just desolder this. All the RF stuff is still there, so you don't even have to unsolder it. You can maybe just roll up the cables and put it inside the case or something like that and have pretty much a stock unit on that. So that's the appeal. There's also some adjustments that can be made there too. So really neat little device. So I'm going to put it back in here until we get to that point. And there's definitely some orientation things that we have to look for. So definitely pretty cool. So let's dig in. Let's pull this guy apart. Put all this stuff off to the side. So as you can see, this thing is filthy. So what we're going to do is, once we get it taken apart, we will pretty much put that in a bath of dish soap, get it all cleaned up, and should be good to go. So really, it's in decent overall condition. So another difference between this and a 4-switcher is there are 2 additional screws, where the 4-switcher just has basically these, I believe. Or is it those? Anyway, it only has one of these 2 pairs. So, but we'll go ahead and get this going here. Now, taking screws out is just riveting. So how was your day today? That's pretty good. It's windy. I live in the Kansas City metro. The question is not necessarily, is it windy? The question is more, when is it not windy? But it was a little more windy than normal. Getting close to, I'm not sure when you're going to watch this video. Getting close to the Thanksgiving season, which is my favorite holiday. My family, it's much more relaxed, which is a great thing. Screws off to the side. You see all this gunk kind of come off here. It is cruddy in there. Woo. So, August 12th, 1978. That's pretty cool. Overall, it is dusty in here, of course, but not too terribly bad. Just looking at some of the components, I don't see any leakage from any. Oh boy, that is moves very easily. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that. Take these off so we don't lose them. So as we're in here, we're going to clean all the switches with deoxit. That's almost a necessity with a lot of these switches. They just get gunk built up in them. So, oh, looky there. We do have a channel 1, channel 2 switch there, or channel 2, channel 3 switch. So, as you see, that's kind of an add-on. It's not the most intuitive. They just kind of slapped on the board where they could and just cut a slit in the case there. So let's take these screws out, which will release the board. So I'm going to disconnect the RF cable. We're not going to put that back on. So it should be routed in this gap around here and then kind of tight in there. That's that way if you're getting wild with your Pac-Man or whatever game you're really getting into and you yank on that RF cable, it doesn't cause any damage. So I'm going to take this, we're going to set it off to the side so we can clean it. But as you can see, we've got two different boards here with a ribbon cable connecting the two of them. Just doing a visual inspection here. Like I said, this was functional. We did have some odd lines. This guy may be fatigued to the point where it would snap off. Could be. It seems like it's still firmly attached there. So let us remove the ribbon cable. Another difference, the early Heavy Sixer has a flat ribbon cable. This is more of a actual divided cable, I guess you would call it. I don't know what you want to call it. But it was a dedicated ribbon, which was kind of problematic. I actually had to do a little bit of repair. I had to build up one of the terminals to with a little solder to make a better connection with the one that I had. So, you know, these things are almost 50 years. I don't want to admit that because I also was built in 1977. So that's kind of a scary thought. So anyway, let's go ahead and take this board off. Anytime we disassemble something, we always want to do it carefully. Let's go and take a look at it. Lots of corrosion on the voltage regulator. Not bad. The capacitors don't appear to be leaking. We're going to replace that one. We're going to replace that one. This one, voltage regulator. Okay, let's put that. Oh, that looks kind of weird. Is that just bad solder joints? Yeah, it looks like a cold solder joint. So that's all part of the RF circuitry. Obviously, we're not going to be using that, but we're going to reflow that anyway. We may go through and see if there's any other bad solder joints. Solder joints. Overall, not too bad. I'll tell you what, the going back to that Heavy Sixer, that had some terrible solder joints. That may be the worst mass-produced solder joints. And we always herald, you know, U.S. manufacturing as being a benchmark. These cable housings are kind of broken up. Is that a big deal? No. We should be okay. One of those pins is kind of bent. Take a look at that, see if we have any. I do have a board that I can harvest some parts on, but I'm not sure. It's a 4 switcher, so I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. So we're going to crack open the RF shield here. once I get this apart, I'll pull out the 4-switch board. We'll take a look at the differences. Doesn't look too bad. The tracing is definitely starting to delaminate. That's not uncommon, and actually this is not bad from some of the ones that I've seen. So, yeah. A lot of flux on those joints. I wonder if something was repaired. One of the Ataris that I put into service was actually repaired. It was a refurbished unit, which was kind of interesting. It was a Sears model, and I forgot what component was soldered in, but it was awful. It was just downright terrible. Let's see if I can get this off gently. In fact, the problem that I was tracing on that one was specifically due to the terrible solder joints. So really made it pretty easy to find, which was great. So, okay. Let's get looking at the board. I don't see anything of significance. I'm not sure if that's dirt or if that's leakage from a capacitor. It's probably just dirt. So we're going to replace this guy. We're going to replace those two. I think that's all we replace on this board, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so overall, I'm fairly pleased with what we're looking at here. I don't see anything terribly abnormal or anything that would really be of any concern. Like I said, since we got it open, we're gonna refurbish it. Okay, so we got our 6-switch and we have our 4-switch. So everything on the 4-switch is pretty much on the same board. As far as chip layout and everything, I think the components and everything are the same. Everything is going to be housed within that RF housing. I'm not gonna take that apart right now. So pretty significant difference, and you can see why it's not just the difference between a couple switches. The way this is set up, everything is pretty much in line, where this board sits like this. This whole board basically sits the same way. And that's why the switches on the back come out the way they do, is because everything on that board is kind of on the same plane. So, yeah, so just looking at this, see if I can harvest these connectors. Let's look at the back side and see what we can find. I did harvest a switch from this already for another project. This was a working unit as well, so if I ever need to rob a chipset or something like that, I can do that on this one, and it will be fine. So I could probably harvest these connectors. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. I'm not overly concerned with that. You guys may be screaming at me in the comments, but I'm probably just gonna leave it the way it is. You can see how this is a little bit more delaminated. That trace is just kind of peeling up off the board. This is more common, so you can see it's fairly stable. It's not going to really move or change or anything like that, but definitely a difference in just the way it's built. See, this is revision 14 on that guy. I think, I don't know if it's going to say what revision number this is. Revision 1. So, not much different from the original. It is different because of country of origin and everything like that. So, but yeah. So if you look at the difference between the RF housings, you can see why many folks think that this is a superior design, which I'm going to agree. I think just having that much RF shielding is just a good thing, even though my observation doesn't really line up with that. So there you have it. So once again, in order to get this RF shield off, there's little twist tabs that you have to flatten out. This top part comes off, and then that also allows the bottom part to come off. So, yeah, there you go. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Guess What Day It Is. I know you guys are probably typing away in the comments. I did forget the Atari Junior. I apologize for that. I don't have any examples of those currently. I had one. That was my personal Atari. The family had an Atari, actually, that black one that's in the box. So I had my own Atari Junior, which is somewhere. Maybe I'll find it at some point and we'll put that up too. So the Atari Junior, pretty much same internals. I believe there were two versions of that. One with a wide rainbow and one with a narrow one. So yeah. So thanks for coming along on this journey. We tore into this Atari, did a nice visual inspection, learned about some of the history of this great groundbreaking game. So once again, I really appreciate you watching. Remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and tell your friends. So we'll see you next time on Guess What Day It Is.